We've been talking about, so far we've talked about signs and the anatomical correspondences to the different signs. And now we're going to move to the planets, right? So the signs rule the zones. That's what we've covered. The zone where a particular discord will express in the body. And the planets are much broader. So like Aries rules the head, right? But Mars rules the blood. And the blood is everywhere. So the blood's not in any one region. The blood is everywhere. And I'd say Mars also rules the muscles. So it isn't just in one zone. And then also the signs will rule a zone. Let's say the area of the kidneys or the area of the heart. But then the planet Venus will rule kidney function. Not the place, not the location, but the function of the kidney, right? And the sun will rule the function of the heart. Jupiter will rule the functions of the liver for that. We'll move into we'll do this. That's a brief introduction. I'm going to go through, I'll cover 6 planets tonight with some examples and some discussion. And then we're going to, I sent out the form already. It's an interview form. It's a way to assess your own chart or somebody else's chart. Is you can go down through the different signs, and if you're interviewing somebody, you can ask, well, have you ever had anything occur to with your respiratory tract, right? Or your arms or your shoulders, you might look for an injury there or so on. And or you can, if you're a medical practitioner, you can take a medical history, except this can inform you of the kind of questions to ask, the standard questions you ask on a medical intake, but that wouldn't be from an astrological perspective, right? So I'm going to cover the first 6 planets here, and then we'll talk about that interview process or even a self-assessment process with the form that I send out. Okay. This is the structure of our discussion. I'm going to go through the planets, and each one I'll describe the rulership, qualities, and energetics. This is our ideas of hot, cold, moist, and dry. That we see in many traditional medical systems, the traditional Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Greek, Roman, Arabic, 4 humors medical system they assess, is this person or this malady more hot or more cold? Right? This is a feverish illness, right? Or inflammatory arthritis with a hot joint, right? That would be heat. Or is it more cold, which would be like deficient, slow metabolism, poor circulation to a particular area there, hot, cold. And then they would also assess dryness or moistness. And I can't go all the way into that, but as astrologers, we understand that, right? We know that Mars is hot and Saturn's cold, and the sun is warm, and so on. Venus is, and Mercury is dry. We know these qualities. So, for each listing, I'll put qualities and energetics that we usually think of. Now, my insight into this is I've done a fair amount of work with the weather predicting course, and with actually, saying, oh, this is beautiful experience. One night there was a drought right in Portland, and it was late August. And there was this absolutely clear sky. It was a drought, and the indication for moisture, the moon was crossing a degree. There was an indication for moisture, right? And I said, well, I'm going to go out and see if it rains in the middle of this drought. And I swear, over the 2 hours where the moon was crossing that degree, this puffy little cloud formed and then dissolved. And you could see the wave of the astral, it was moving through the astral, and it attracted whatever little moisture was there, congealed, right, and then dispersed there. And so the I've done some other work with weather to where I'm kind of fluent with that. And because I was trained in these humoral systems of natural medicine, I have a fair amount of training in Chinese medicine. And they when I look at the weather properties, I say, this is a much better description. The weather, the properties that are attributed to the planets and the signs with weather is a much better description of the astral influences of these planets, because the effects on the health aren't going to be different than the effects on the weather, right? It's the same environment, right? So I include this for each planet. I include the usual weather, the weather indications for that, and you can sometimes see a difference there. So like they say, well, you can say the sun is hot and dry. An affliction to the sun might create a hot, dry condition, but actually in weather, the sun isn't so hot and dry in a weather chart, right? It's warm. I mean, it tends to heat and dryness, but it's not incendiary heat like Mars. Okay, so so anyway, the point is why I'm including weather here is for those people may see this, take this course now or in the future. If you're a practitioner of one of these systems, these are very, very useful for understanding we call it the energetics, the humoral energetics of what's happening with the person. Okay. Now I'm including thoughts. This is straight. These are straight quotes from Zane with a couple of additions for some planets for my insights, and which are consistent with what was taught. And but also the thoughts. These are useful for psychological issues and also for mental alchemy. Let's say we have I'll tell some stories as we go through some of the planets. I'm just inspired to tell this one story today. Way back, I was just starting to study astrology in the 70s, the early 70s, and we had a little association, the Kentucky Astrological Association in Louisville, Kentucky, and there was a woman there. She was about my age, right? And she was like really cute, and friendly, and we looked at our charts together, and our Venuses were exactly conjunct. Our Venuses were in the same degree. My Venus is in the degree of my ascendant, right? So this wasn't on any big grand designs or anything. I thought it might be fun to ask her out on a date. And so this one weekend, Venus was crossing our conjuncted Venuses in my ascendant. And I said, well, that'd be the great time to have a date. And so we made a date. And she calls me about an hour before the date. She says, I'm sorry, I can't come. I'm having an attack of kidney stones. So the planets, this is why we want to, the thoughts can be more harmonious or more discordant, and the expressions of those planets can be more harmonious and discordant. Jupiter you can end up with serious liver disease, right? Even though Jupiter is a benefic planet, and I mentioned the kidney stones with Venus and so on. So anyway, thoughts useful for mental alchemy. Okay. Then we have the pathology, and these are from our courses, the pathology, the diseases that are characteristic of that planet, and these were derived from the research done by the community of the Church of Light over the 20th century, and where they did like 100 charts of people with heart disease or 100 charts of people with cancer, and they found planet constants. So this is how Zane put those constants into the charts associated with the planets. But instead of these are the constants for cancer, they'll say Saturn is often involved in cancer, right? So we can be characteristic of that. So, okay, therapeutics. Now these are the therapeutic methods we unfortunately in our society, we grow up and we think, well, there's medicine. Well, there's medicine. Medicine equals drugs and surgery, right? And but methods of healing are extremely diverse, right? We have various methods of body work, various methods of hands-on healing, right? We have an approach to diet for healing, right? We have needling with acupuncture, right? There are therapeutic methods that are associated with each planet. Well, most of the planets have something associated with them. And we find this in the Church of Light lessons in the Sacred Tarot course. They'll have, I believe, if I remember correctly, and it'll say, well, this is the healing method, therapeutic methods associated with this planet, this signature. So we're going to go into that, and then after we've completed our introductory material, our foundation material, I'm going to go into more detail of how to you assess the discord. This is what the discord is, right? And assess, well, maybe this person would benefit more from homeopathy, right? And this person would benefit more from acupuncture because of the signatures of the planet involved, right? So I'm going to introduce it here. This is the foundation, okay? And then these are all from our the conversion, the antidote, and the antidote 2. These are from our lessons on alchemy, and we'll have for instance, the conversion of Mars. Mars, you have the Mars energy. Instead of spending it on an accident or an injury, you spend it on a nice exercise program, right? And once you've harmonious, not excessive, you have a pleasurable use of the Mars energy, maybe there's not enough Mars energy left over to attract something painful, right? So that's conversion. And then also the antidote to the planet, and then what the planet can be used as an antidote to. These are the other pairs. So we're going to end up with alchemical pairs, and I'm going to mention them here, and then in a future lesson, I'm really going to focus in on the pairs and how they fit together, right? For therapeutics and for alchemy, possible medical issues. Okay. I sent out this reference last week. I've had this book for a long time, and so many books are now appearing full text, free downloadable copies of old books with the copyright expired or people have lost interest in them. And this is the Encyclopedia of Medical Astrology by Cornell. I sent an electronic version of those out. And I discussed this a little bit at the end of last class. This is really impressive. I mean, it's an encyclopedia. It has all this stuff in it. And Cornell himself was a physician. He's a medical doctor. He's a licensed medical doctor of, we don't know today because there's only one school of medical doctors, but even as late as 1930, there were at least 4 schools of medical doctors, right? You could be a medical doctor and be a homeopath. You'd be a medical doctor and be what was called a physiomedicalist, which was a medical doctor herbalist, right? You could be a medical doctor and be of the school. This person was the school of eclectic medicine. And these people used standard medicine, standard medical diagnostics, but they mainly used herbal medicines instead of strong, heavy drugs. And they also use diet therapy. So he was of that. He had a lot of experience, and he practiced for many years. And then he kept notes on his cases. He'd analyze most of his cases at some point in his career. Most of his cases, he would always get the birth chart, and he was analyzing them for astrology. So there's some data in here that could be very useful. And then at one point in his career, he stopped practicing medicine and he just practiced and taught astrology, right? So he really knew his astrology. I would say where this suffers, right, is because one guy did it. it's very heroic, right? But one guy did it. And I told I told a joke last week. I have some, as my naturalist training includes some animal tracking, right? And we have a joke in tracking circles. If you track alone, you're always right. You know, I think this is that animal. Oh, yay. And I'm a good tracker, you know, and your buddy says, oh, you crazy. That thing's just an upside down bear track, you know, or something like that. So this is true. And this is part of our Hermetic training, right? Is that, you know, you have to have double checks on your cognitive function, right? Lots of people have cognitive bias mistakes and things like that. So where I would compare this, and so as I read through this, I find things that I believe are demonstrably false in this, right? And I think his thing is, let's say, well, he had a case and somebody had Neptune square Jupiter and they had diabetes. And he interpreted that the Neptune square Jupiter was a signature for diabetes, right? But so then he puts that in the encyclopedia, but he didn't do what the Church of Light did, get 100 people with diabetes and look at what were the constants to all of them, right? So a lot of this can be this fundamental human error of extrapolating from a single to a general. And this is something human mind likes to do, right? It's a natural, it's like gravity. We do this if we don't put a check on it with our critical thinking. So I include the book because it's useful to consult, but I would do it with that caution in it. It can be very useful to explore for ideas. And part of the reason I'm putting it now is because a few of the things I'm going to mention on the planets, I'll put Cornell page X, right, which would be where I got that idea. Okay. All right, we'll start with the sun. Okay, and this is except where I put my name on there. These are all from our lessons. Okay, the sun is the general significator of the length and the strength of life. Okay. Mars rules the vitality, the life force. When we finish the basic planets and signs, I'm going to go into the kind of the Hermetic model of the vital constitution. I'll describe that. But the sun is to our constitution what the sun is to the planetary system, right? It's the basic source of life. And we have, it's called historically, the Greeks and the Arabs, they called it vital force. And they says it's bright and brilliant like the sun, and it animates and vitalizes all the nooks and crannies of the body and the spirit and the mind, right? So this is what we mean by the vital force. Here this was Zane's term was spleen. Spleen, we know today what the spleen is. The spleen is like we know we have lymph nodes in our neck, right? The spleen is a massive lymphatic material, right? Except instead of lymph going through there, blood is going through there, right? And so it's like the oil filter on your car, right? All your blood passes through the spleen, and that's the immune system, and it's looking for anything that's not right, right? And any degraded proteins or red blood cells have gone bad, you just get rid of them, right? And rip them up. So we know today the spleen is part of the lymphatic system, and as such, it would be ruled by the moon, right? The moon rules the lymphatic system. So the organ, the spleen, this term was used at the time Zane was writing to indicate spirit. Person has spirit. You say, oh, that guy has a lot of spleen, right? Means that guy's ready to fight. Person has a lot of spirit. That's people will use that today, or that's in some of our older literature. So when he says spleen, do not mistake this for the spleen organ, which is part of the lymphatic system. Okay, it's an obsolete term for vital electrical energy. Okay. We have the idea of electrical is like positive, right? Magnetic is like attractive. And we have this idea, the human vital constitution includes the electrical influence of the sun and the magnetic influence of the moon. And then we also have Mercury would be involved there also for the breath. But so this is what we mean by the electrical. It pairs with the moon. The life force is electromagnetic in character. Okay. So, all right. Qualities and energetics. This is every astrology book says the same thing. It's hot and dry. It's vital, constructive, expansive, and tonic. This was from the book by Max Heindel that I gave out earlier. Okay. And Zane said proud, firm, controlling. You get the firmness there. Okay. Now I'd like to just to note when we do this, the disparity between, well, the sun is hot and dry. Okay, but the weather, warm, very dry, calm, powerful, right? And this would seem to indicate, and we see this in weather, this would seem to indicate that the dryness of the sun may be more important to pathology than the heat of the sun, right? This is from Zane from our weather predicting course. Okay, thoughts of self-esteem, pride, conscientiousness, personal significance, positions of authority, and vitality, or as Zane always puts in, or of discord and failure in these things. And I had here the sense of purpose, and this is my kind of what I've absorbed from the lessons, this idea of our significance. The sun is our sense of significance, right? Our uniqueness, and it's completely very much tied to our mission, our destiny, our purpose, our contribution. Okay. Also from our lessons, pathology. This is diseases of the spine and heart. Now, this is, we also have this for Leo, right? So this is natural because sun is the ruler of Leo, but diseases of the spine and heart. Okay. High blood pressure. Infantile paralysis. Now we see this all through our lessons. Nobody knows what infantile paralysis is anymore. It's an obsolete term for polio, right? And nobody talks about it anymore because there isn't any polio anymore, right? And it was named infantile paralysis before they had identified the polio virus, right? So they didn't actually know what caused it, right? So, I would say the constants, though, apply to similar conditions. We have things called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where a person can get paralyzed, and I'll describe that when I discuss one of our charts of a person with polio. And then also pneumonia. Now I have here down that pneumonia, why would the sun be involved with pneumonia, right? Right? Well, because pneumonia is a disease of low vitality, right? So this is my reason why. And actually, you don't have to ask why. You can look at a bunch of charts of pneumonia and you'll always see the sun, the sun is afflicted, natally and by progression, when that occurs. So, okay. Therapeutics, the method, light and color therapy, that's from Zane. I don't know if he did this sunbathing. Sunbathing is well, let's put it this way. In the year 1900, every hospital in the United States had a solarium on the roof, and they recognized the benefit of taking sick patients and getting them exposed to the sun. Now, today, we know that has something to do with vitamin D, but it has more to do than that. Okay, I'm going to have a slide in here on sunbathing and talk more about that. But this has been part of traditional healing like forever and ever and ever. In all systems, go back into the root, exposure to sunbath. So, okay. There's a thing, I live in this can occur anywhere where it gets very dark in the winter. I live in Portland, Oregon, where it's dark at 4:30 in the afternoon on the winter solstice, and the day isn't very long, and the actual day in Portland, Oregon might be like living in a basement because it's completely gray right when it's light. So it's epidemic up here is a mental emotional condition called seasonal affective disorder, and people become very lethargic and depressed and seasonal affective disorder. And they did find, and I would say this can happen not just in for people who are susceptible to it, not just in the farther northern climates. I observed this also. I lived and practiced in Colorado for 17 years, and lots of people had things like this, and it would even start in October or November when the days got shorter. When the days were shorter than the nights, people would start feeling lethargic and hard to accomplish their work and things. And so they did discover a therapy for this. One of the things is to walk out if there is some sun out, to walk out during the noon hour and get a lot of sun exposure in your eyes, right? And that can help. But the other is high intensity, full spectrum lighting. And you see people, they'll get a panel of light, like about the size of a large computer monitor, right? But have it be full spectrum light bulbs. And then say at your work desk, you have that behind your work desk, and you get a couple of hours of exposure to that. And there's something about the light going in the eyes that sets the circadian rhythm and sets the endocrine, the neuroendocrine system in a certain balance or order. Okay. And this is from Zane. He said a forest is like a solar battery. The forest is all full of solar energy, all full of vital energy. And walking in nature, so walking in the forest like that, you can get an influx. You get a vital revitalization there. Okay. Conversion of the energy, cultivate positive thoughts of self-esteem, actions to raise the vital force. I say example, affirmations of self-esteem. We have a category of herbs in medical herbalism called tonic herbs. This is an idea from Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. They're herbs, you take them, they increase the vital expression. Today in the health food store, they call these adaptogens, and we could talk more about that here. To antidote, this is from Zane. The discords of the sun are marked by discordant planetary aspects from other planets. Okay. So the antidotes to those planets should be applied to the affairs, thoughts, and anatomical regions ruled by the sun. Okay. So we don't have an antidote to the sun, right? We have an antidote to the planets that have discordant aspects to the sun. So here, if we have, let's just say someone's sun is square their moon, okay, that would mean that negative lunar energy could be draining the vitality, right, in the zone of that place. So the antidote to the moon is Mars, right? So here you would apply the Mars energy, but you'd apply it to the zone of the sun in order to assist. Yeah. And in the location of the sun. I know some of the people here practice the hands-on healing, the Church of Light method of hands-on healing, and this would be applicable to that kind of treatment. It's the antidote to the sun, positive solar thought, positive solar energy, to Saturn, which is probably the most negative planet. But then Venus, Neptune, and Pluto, when they're negative on their bad days, they're very negative. They're very mediumistic, right? And they can tend to become like a sponge and take things in and be controlled by other things, are vulnerable to external influences. And so the sun energy is useful as an antidote to these. Okay. This is positive self-esteem, sense of purpose, physical or mental vitality, helps antidote the negativity inherent in those planets. Okay. So here, sun and pneumonia. Okay. This was, I believe it's possible the afflicted sun may indicate impaired vitality and susceptibility. Right? We do see pneumonia is more common in elders. As we get older, our battery naturally runs down, our vitality gets lower, and so pneumonia is more common in elders. Also in alcoholics, chronic alcoholics get a characteristic kind of pneumonia, which is characteristic. So this is a disease of low vitality. And here I have. We are in future class, we're going to go through diseases, and I have 15 charts of people with COVID, people who are hospitalized with COVID pneumonia and put on ventilators or given oxygen, supplemental oxygen. So they had diagnosed with COVID pneumonia. Every one of the 15 charts had a discordant aspect to the natal sun. Okay, well, lots of people have a discordant aspect to the natal sun. Or if it didn't have a discordant aspect, it had an aspect to a malefic planet. So I think one or two of those charts had like a sextile to Mars or something, or an aspect to Mars or Saturn. Okay. 14 of the 15 had a progressed discordant aspect to the sun. The fifth had progressed sun was parallel to the progressed ascendant in Uranus, and in the chart, the natal ascendant was opposite Uranus in Gemini, and was that's a very discordant aspect there. So in here, the sun was parallel to this very discordant aspect. So that was one out of the that was the one chart that didn't have an actual discordant aspect to the sun. Okay. Here now, Zane says polio. This is the famous case of polio. This is FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Here was, well, it was very well, he was stricken very suddenly. And according to Zane, the birth chart constants are Mars, Uranus, and the sun. I'm sorry, Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and the sun are all prominent. And then progressed constants, an aspect involving Mars, aspect involving Sun, an aspect involving Uranus, and usually an aspect involving Saturn. Okay, we can look here a little. We're going to look at birth Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and the Sun. Here, can you? I'm not sure. You're going to have to give me some feedback. I can show the chart big like this. Or I can have it that way. Can you see it either way? Is it better big?
I prefer it big. I can see it better.
Okay.
Because I'm working off of a laptop.
So, well, here it is. We have the sun. We were looking for. There here is the sun. The backbone of this discord is the sun is square to Neptune. It's square to Saturn, and that qualifies as square to Jupiter, right? So this is a kind of these two being very negative. Saturn and Neptune are very negative, right? Squaring the sun. You would think that would lower the vitality. This is what we were talking about. The nature of the afflicting planet is what needs to be antidoted in the sun. So this would be an affinity there. Now, and then we had, okay, now, so we were also going to look for Mars. And here we have the sun is sesquiquadrate to Mars, okay? And that's pretty close. It's within a degree, right? And so here we have the Mars, there we have Saturn, Neptune, Mars, and let me see. What's the one more thing we're looking for? Oh, and Uranus. It says Uranus prominent. Now here, our rules of prominence. If planets make an aspect to the sun, the moon, or Mercury, we consider that's one of the rules of prominence. Or if they're angular, here we have these then are prominent by their close aspects to the sun. And Mars here is the highest planet in the chart, so that's prominent, right? You would have to say this FDR was certainly had a strong Mars. He was a war president, a war leader, and so okay. And now here, Uranus would be, I consider something conjunct the ascendant or the midheaven that adds prominence to it. I don't see that. I didn't see that in Zane's lessons, right? So, but here you can see the 11. Okay, this is sesquiquadrate to the ascendant, but not to the Uranus out there. Okay, I'll go here. Okay, now let's see. Let's do these: Sun, square, Neptune, Saturn, and Jupiter, sesquiquadrate Mars in the midheaven, and sesquiquadrate the ascendant. You remember early in the course, I said we see these semi-squares and sesquiquadrates as they're aggravating, right? Like this square here is an inherent discord. It's an obstacle to be overcome, right? But instead of having a nice like trine and quincunx right over there of planets, no, these are aggravating planets. These semi-squares and sesquiquadrates, they aggravate the square, they make it worse, right? They add discord to it. And so this is, we see this here. This isn't just a square, that's the basic square, but then this is aggravated by Mars, etc. So, okay. Here, okay. Now the progressions, well, we could look at the more discordant. Progressed midheaven, let's find this here. Progressed midheaven is semi-square to Uranus. Okay, where's this guy? Midheaven. Progressed midheaven is yes, semi-square to Uranus, to both of them, the natal and the progressed Uranus. Progressed midheaven is semi-square. There's our Uranus. The progressed Sun is semi-square Saturn. Okay. Progressed Sun is semi-square to Saturn. Okay, and progressed Venus is semi-square to the Sun. Okay, and I think there's one more, and then the progressed ascendant is trine to Mars, right? Now here, we'll see this from time to time. You have an overall discordant configuration, very discordant configuration. And sometimes with the progressions, the triggering progression might be a harmonious aspect, right? It's opening up an avenue to the Mars. It's bringing some prominence into the Mars energy, even though it might be harmonious. Underneath that Mars has a fundamentally discordant relationship with the Sun there. So, okay. Okay, and this is FDR, discords with polio. Now, there is a syndrome, there's a paralytic thing that can happen. It can happen with viral infections, and it can also happen sometimes with immunizations it's a rare side effect of immunizations. It's called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's a nervous condition. It can follow a viral infection, and the person ends up paralyzed, right? And so this was recent years, I think in 2016 or something, a medical scholar looked back at FDR's story and his symptoms and what happened and said, well, I don't think he had polio. I think he had Guillain-Barré syndrome. And I would just mention that just because polio as a virus is gone, I mean, it's not here anymore. People don't get, they get polio maybe in one little place somewhere in India, right? But it's mostly gone from the planet. And that doesn't mean we can throw the constants aside, because we do see these kind of things. They're polio-like, right? And I know there's a mosquito-borne viral illness called West Nile syndrome, West Nile fever, which was actually, there was a huge epidemic of it in Colorado when I lived there. And some of the people, not common, uncommon, maybe 1% of the people end up in the hospital with neurological disease. And some of them develop Guillain-Barré syndrome, right? And were paralyzed. And sometimes they'll call it polio-like paralytic syndrome. So I'm just here, because we don't have polio anymore, doesn't mean these constants aren't important in polio-like illnesses. Right, so it's possible FDR had a polio-like illness rather than polio. Okay. Sunbathing. I know a lot about natural medicine. I know a lot about natural methods, right, that don't have anything to do with drugs or even have anything to do with herbs, for that matter. And this is one of the methods, sunbathing. This is a nice, this is from a medical text from India, where this was part of traditional medicine in India. And this exact method is, yeah, this is turn of the 20th century. Hospitals routinely had a solarium on the roof. Today, vitamin D has become more famous. Vitamin D wasn't, a lot of people weren't too much aware of vitamin D until after about the year 2000. Around the year 2000, medical vitamin D scholars figured out that during the wintertime, practically the entire North American population is suffering from vitamin D deficiency, right, because of the lack of sunlight that occurs in the winter. And this is now lots of people supplement vitamin D. And in my own medical practice, we've seen this absolutely turn people around. People can have chronic fatigue. They'll be misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia, or have achy muscles with fatigue and a respiratory infection. They take vitamin D for like 7 or 8 days and it's gone. It goes away. What they had was vitamin D deficiency. And this contributes, the vitamin D deficiency contributes to cold and flu season. During the, and the rule here is the sun has to be above 45 degrees in the sky for you to make any vitamin D, right? You make it ultraviolet, there's ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B in sunlight. Ultraviolet B is what makes vitamin D. And if the sun is below about 40 degrees, the vitamin UVB gets completely absorbed by the atmosphere and you don't make one molecule of vitamin D. So in most of the country, that lasts from October till March, right? October to March, people don't make any vitamin D. And you can look at the average levels of vitamin D, and they follow this big sine curve like this, right? Oh, here they are, they peak in late summer, and then they're at their lowest at the end of February, and then they peak in March, summer, and lowest at the end of February. So when they're, one of the symptoms of vitamin D deficiency is respiratory infection, easy respiratory infection. So this is why one of the reasons we have cold and flu season in January, February, right? That's the influenza is always worse. And what we've seen the past couple of years, COVID's always worse in the winter. We always have a winter surge. So people's host immunity is down, okay? This is the powerful sunbathing. You want the sun to be within about an hour of true noon in your place. You know, true noon during daylight savings time is actually 1 o'clock. So you want it to be within an hour. It's most potent as it's building. We know this from astrology, a forming aspect has more power, but the sun is potent in the time leading up to noon in that hour. And about 20 minutes is optimal for somebody with white skin, light skin without much melanin in their skin. Okay. if the more somebody with a little bit or a little bit more or a whole lot of melanin in their skin, they will know how easily they sunburn, right? And some people with dark skin, they simply don't burn. Some people with white skin, like I have white skin, but I tan very easily, so I don't burn very well. Some people with white skin just burn to a crisp right away. So you want to do that. But the optimal amount for white skin is about 20 minutes. Somebody with more melanin in their skin can do longer than that. This is called, you don't want to burn. You don't want to burn. So depending on your sensitivity, most people will not develop a sunburn in 20 minutes of sunlight, right? So, so you want to stay below the dose that gives you a sunburn. There you go. Sun makes vitamin D, affecting 8 major systems in the body. It's completely part of our vitality, right? And if it's deficient, we cannot be well. Okay. In addition, sun is much more potent than just making vitamin D, right? In addition to vitamin D, it makes other compounds that are beneficial to the immune system. It makes one particular substance that it makes helps counter autoimmunity, the tendency to autoimmunity. Some people with autoimmune conditions, they'll go to it's famous to go to the Dead Sea in Israel, right, and sunbathe and soak in the mineral waters, right? And the sunbathing helps with helps suppress autoimmune reactions there. Sun also generates a substance that's beneficial for high blood pressure. This would be the primary therapeutic thing associated with the sun. Okay. All right. Here we have the moon. This is a rulership second only to the sun in influence over the general health. It rules constitutional magnetism. The zone is the medulla oblongata. According to the vital theory, at the time Zane was writing, the medulla oblongata was the center of where magnetic energy is stored. Interstitial fluids and the lymphatic system of the body. Interstitial fluids are water in the body, right? You have water inside your cells, right? And then you have some water inside your vessels. Not more than about 5% of the water is inside your vessels, right? But a lot of the fluid, it's in called the extracellular matrix. So you have cells here are in a connective tissue matrix, and there's a fluid there. It's called the interstitial fluid, extracellular fluid, and that's ruled by the moon. Also the lymph, those areas around the cell, that interstitial fluid that drains back through the lymphatic system, where the lymph nodes capture anything that's foreign or strange in there and eliminate it. So this is the moon rules lymph and the fluids in the body. Okay. Qualities are moist. It's from Max Heindel, moist, cool, nutritive, receptive. From Cornell, negative, feminine, magnetic, fruitful. Zane, dreamy, adds to that. Dreamy, the moon is dreamy. The weather, up here we had moist, cold. Here we have cool. And you see it says cool, but not cold. It's not the cold weather that you would get with Saturn, right? So it's cool weather, the moon is. And then we have it's moist, but here in the weather, it's considered the wettest planet. Of all the planets, it's the most moist. So I think the weather insights help to modify and help shape and give a clearer opinion of the traditional energetics there. Okay. Thoughts about domestic conditions, the home life, women, nurturing, the home, when discordant, misfortune in these things. The pathology, it's a factor in mental complaints. I consider, but it's people aren't really precise, mental complaint versus an emotional complaint, right? well, there might be some nuances there, some parsing there, but I do believe it. The moon would be emotional illness. Okay, involved with Mars in eye trouble. I think the idea here is the eyes. The eye is like a little moon. It's full of fluid, right? It's like a little moon, and I'm going to show you some. And then also with ear troubles, I show some charts with eyes and ear troubles. I'll show them in a minute here. And then also diseases of the stomach. So we have the moon rules the stomach. We know before Cancer rules the stomach zone, right? So they're related. You can have nothing going on in Cancer at all, and an affliction to the moon, and it's going to affect Cancer through its rulership, right? So, okay. Therapeutics. This is hydrotherapy. That's using water as medicine. I do know I've studied everything I could possibly find about Egyptian medicine, and they had the Egyptian physicians had specialists like gynecologists or gastroenterologists or doctors with they'd specialize in a particular disease or a particular system, but they had a general training everybody got, right? And every Egyptian doctor was trained in body work and massage and manipulation, and was also trained in hydrotherapy and also trained in dietetic therapy, right? That was considered basic training of a physician in those days. Even if you were going to specialize in something else, you learned those methods for that. So hydrotherapy, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Also water immersion and water cure drinking water, their methods there. Here, I'll give you some references for those methods. Here we have conversion, encourage positive moon thoughts and expressions and feelings. Antidote with Mars thoughts, therapeutics, qualities, and herbal actions. There's an example. People can have dropsy, that's a fluid accumulation. And there is a therapy, it's called apitherapy, as people use bee venom therapy. They do little injections of bee venom. You actually let the bees sting you, right? And I have a colleague who practices this and actually used it. It was part of her own recovery from Lyme disease, was using apitherapy. Here, okay. The other antidote, this is the moon. One of the finest things you can do for a harmonious Mars, I'll talk about this again too, also, is brisk but comfortable walking, right? You see, Mars doesn't have to be going out and getting a fist fight or a boxing match or or pump iron in a gym or something like that. You can tell if Mars is active if your respiration is increased. Right? If you go for a brisk but comfortable walk where you're breathing harder, but not so hard you can't have a conversation, right? Do you know what those breaths are? You're taking in oxygen because you're burning, right? You just stoked the fire up and you need more oxygen to keep the fire going, right? So this moderate exercise that's generating warmth and generating breath, that's Mars. That's if it's pleasurable, this is brisk but comfortable. Mars, this is Mars alchemy. This is pleasurable, harmonious Mars, right? People get in trouble when they're going to say, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna exercise an extra 45 minutes and I'm gonna burn some calories and lose some weight or whatever. This becomes very destructive use of Mars, right? That excessive exercise is very destructive here. So the, okay, all right. Here is the antidote. Antidote, it is used as an antidote to the moon, to Mars. Thoughts of nurturing and care for the weak and the helpless. Temper the aggressive urges of Mars. Okay, but there's also an example there. Sprains, inflammation. This would be Mars. Somebody has an injury. They tore their ankle, right? Or inflammation is Mars. Is hydrotherapy. Water hydrotherapy is one of the classic ancient treatments for febrile illness, for inflammatory illness, and often the hydrotherapy method, I'm going to give some references in a minute, but Water is amazing. You can get a certain effect on the body from immersion in water, right? But then you can also affect the circulation and metabolism in the body by alternating hot and cold, right? By you get, for instance, warm water is one application, cold water is another application, and they can have opposite effects or complementary effects, or alternating hot and cold. So it can be very basic, and it can also become very sophisticated. I'm actually give you a reference for a medical level text on hydrotherapy, where doctors, it's a book for doctors, right? So, yeah. Okay. This is hydrotherapy, essential part of medicine since ancient times. At the turn of the 20th century, hospitals and mental institutions routinely had hydrotherapy departments, right? This can be as simple, this is for personal alchemy, as simple as a warm bath, right? You get a physiological, relaxing, immune enhancing effect just from taking a warm bath on that. And or another method, an alternating hot and cold shower. That method, the alternating hot and cold shower, you take a hot shower for 3 minutes, then turn the water cold for 30 seconds, and then go back to 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, and then alternate that 3 times. I had a student one time, at the beginning of the year, she was cold all the time. She had a cold constitution. And she did that exercise. She did it as a morning, whenever she did a shower, she did that as a habit. And by the end of the school year, she had a warm constitution. She had brought enough vitality into the body that her body was now warm all the time instead of cold. These are 2 references. It's called Lectures in Naturopathic Hydrotherapy by Boyle. That is medical level, if you guys are medical practitioners. The other one, this was one of my core learning books in the 70s. It's still good today. Home Remedies, Hydrotherapy, Massage, Charcoal, and Other Simple Treatments by Agatha Thrash. That's a very useful book if you're interested in pursuing that idea of lunar alchemy. This is some principles of hydrotherapy. Never apply cold water to a cold body. Right? You would say, why do we use cold? Oh, it's called reactive hydrotherapy. A short cold application will evoke a strong vital response, right? So the body goes, oh, there's cold there. We're going to send a lot of energy over there to warm that up, right? But so you can use cold application as a trigger to increase vital circulation to a certain area. If it becomes too long, the cold becomes depressive. So this is never apply cold water to a cold body. Warm bath, relaxing, promotes circulation and immunity. Neutral bath. This is a bath about 1 degree above your body temperature. Okay, you take your temperature, take the water temperature, and you keep it about 1 degree above. To the touch, that will feel, it's called neutral. It's actually a little bit warmer than your body temperature, but it feels kind of neutral. And this was one of the main hydrotherapy techniques used in mental hospitals throughout the United States at the turn of the 20th century. And that it's very relaxing. Somebody can be manic, and you can put them in a neutral bath and keep them in there for some time, and it'll relax their mania. So most of us aren't manic before bedtime, but a lot of us are anxious before bedtime. And neutral bath is a very nice thing to do to prepare to go to sleep in the evening. It can take excess heat out of the body, excess agitation out of the body there. Okay. This is the alternating hot and cold shower that I talked about. Here's a case. Jacques Anquetil, stomach cancer. Okay, and this is moon with the stomach. Here we have the moon. I can move it to an easier one to see. Here's the moon. You see the moon is angular. It's prominent. It has a lot of prominent planets here. In here, the Sun and Mercury are prominent. Moon and Jupiter are prominent. Pluto's prominent by being angular. But the moon is prominent here. It is square to the sun, very close square to Mercury. Okay. And a wide square, but within our orbs for an angular luminary, square to Pluto. in Cancer, and also within orb of an opposition over here. And so we have, this is the moon and stomach Cancer. You'll always find, we'll talk more when we talk about Saturn, but you will always find Saturn will be prominent and afflicted in someone with Cancer. And so here's Mars conjunct Saturn. Saturn aspects this luminary here. There we go. Okay. Now also we have stomach Cancer. The Cancer rules the stomach also. So here we have Pluto in Cancer, but it's square to Moon, the ruler of Cancer. And it's just a case of a lunar disease of the stomach. 5:39 already. Okay. This is a famous baseball player, Tony Conigliaro. He was hit in the face with a fastball standing up there to bat. He got hit, and it broke the orbit bone. It broke this bone on his face, and damaged his eye. I wonder if I have a bigger close-up of that. No, I don't. You can see his black eye there, but it broke this facial bone and damaged his eye and caused a retinal detachment. He had double vision and could never see right after that. That was one bad day, right? When you get hit in the face with a ball like that. Damaged the eye, detached retina and double vision, and it fairly well ruined his baseball career. Here is we're going to look for natal affliction to the moon, and here we do have Pluto square the moon. Okay, and that's the only aspect to the moon, the only adverse aspect to the moon. We're looking for a discord there, and then we have 16, 17. I think I missed. Oh, that's a progression. Okay, natal. Okay, the other thing in his chart that's very dominating his chart is the Saturn Mars opposition. Right, it's very discordant. I think that might be the most discordant aspect you can have is Saturn opposite Mars. Because you get the power of the opposition with both malefics involved there, and we have here that we can see this is a trine and a sextile here, but in this particular case, it's probably not a good thing to have a trine and a sextile to the most discordant this is the most discordant aspect in the horoscope there, especially one that destructive. So we have here natal moon is square Pluto, natal Mars opposite Saturn. Now, when we move to the progressions, let me see what we have here. Yeah, to the progressions, progressed Mars is parallel to the Sun and parallel to Saturn and parallel to Pluto. Right? So if you look over here for Mars itself, you don't see angular progressions to the Mars, and you don't see progressions aspects to the progressed Mars, and we must see Mars there for somebody to get hit in the face, Aries, Mars, with a fastball to smash a bone and blind him. That's a tremendous thing there. We will have to have a Mars progression, and we find it in the parallels. And this is a theme I've come back to in many other classes. You must do parallels to do medical astrology, right? And you have to do progress parallels in order to do medical astrology, because in some cases, well, let's just say here, progress Mars parallel Sun, Saturn, and Pluto tell Tony Canigliaro that progressions that parallels aren't important, right? He got it. So, and then another trigger here is the progressed sun is here, and the progressed sun here is exactly opposite the Pluto, which it was in this original configuration there. And then progressed Pluto is also parallel Mars, right? So this is progressed Mars is parallel Pluto, but progressed Pluto is parallel natal Mars. Okay. Okay. So we have the potential, and then we have the triggers, the releasing there. And this is the moon. This is the eyeball. Okay. Here is this is the ear. This one, this is I think this is an athlete. He ruptured an eardrum and a broken nose. Okay. So we're going to look to the moon for the ear. Okay. We look to the moon for the ear. Then we'll look to Scorpio for the nose. When we talked about Scorpio, we talked about the reproductive organs and so on. In this particular case, traditionally the nose rules Scorpio. I don't know it's because it's a nice eliminative organ and it goes drip, 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 or whether people just figured it out empirically, right? That it has something to do with Scorpio. So we'll look here. I'll give you the bigger chart. See the natal Mars is parallel moon here. Okay. Natal Mars here is parallel to the moon. We're looking for it. Where's our moon here? There's no moon in this chart. There it is. Okay. Natal Mars here is parallel to the moon. So we know the parallel is a little bit different than a conjunction, right? But if we saw Mars conjunct the moon, we wouldn't have any trouble saying that could cause problem with things ruled by the moon. But the parallel adds the intensity and it adds discord because you add the discord of Mars, or half the discord to the moon. And then the moon is also semi-square the ascendant. Okay, and the semi-square. A theme in this course: do not consider the semi-square a minor aspect that can be overlooked. In this particular case, it's an aerial into the ascendant, into the physical body, right? So, okay, and then, okay, so then this would be the ear. Progressions, the progressions at the time of his ruptured eardrum. The progressed Mars is conjunct the moon and semi-square the ascendant. So this original semi-square its potential is set off by Mars having moved forward and is now setting off both ends of that initial discord. Sufficient enough to damage his ear there. We can look for the nose equals Scorpio, Jupiter. I'm sorry, this is Scorpio. We have Scorpio, okay. Jupiter's in Scorpio, and Venus is in Scorpio. So Jupiter is square to Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, okay, and it is also semi-square. Jupiter is semi-square to Mars. These are the co-rulers of Pluto, are in discordant aspect to Jupiter in Scorpio and Venus, so on. So we do have the discord there in the natal to the natal Scorpio, and the Pluto. I would say these other aspects, because Mars is involved, could affect the nose via Mars's rulership of Scorpio, but we also have Pluto here's our Sun and Mars. Progressed Pluto is progressed Pluto is semi-square to Mars there. time. I think, what do we have? Do we have another? Yes, I did look for other eye problems. This was, I have the collection I described. I have, it's 120 charts. They cover about more than 200 different medical conditions that I did to prepare. This was a few years ago, but I looked up for everywhere in that chart where I could find somebody with eye problems or blindness. Okay, and I just looked at the natal. I didn't always have a date for when it happened, so I didn't look at the progressions. But here, Albert Crossfield, test pilot, eye problems. Moon is semi-square and sesquiquadrate to Venus and Mars opposite Uranus. This is the discordant Venus and Mars opposite Uranus. And then the moon is tied into that by a semi-square and sesquiquare to the two ends of that opposition. Okay. Here's a boxer, with blindness, moon, semi-square Uranus. Sandy Duncan, singer, actor, blindness, Mars, semi-square the moon. And also sesquiquadrate Mercury and Venus. I think that I have to clarify that. I believe the moon is sesquiquadrate to Mercury and Venus. Okay. Eleanor Clark, writer, blindness, moon Mars conjunction is semi-square to both ends of an ascendant midheaven square. Okay. Here, Raymond Barry, an athlete, poor eyesight, moon and Uranus, that's a conjunction, are semi-square the sun. So you can see this, it's consistent there. I'm noticing a lot of Uranus there, but I want to see more charts than just 5 or 6 before I reach a generalization that Uranus would be involved in that. And so what I think that's as many planets as we're going to be able to do this evening. Let me pull up my. I'm gonna unshare this for a minute, and let me pull up my form here. Where are we here? Come on, you can do it. There you go. Oh, that's not good. 6. Here you go. This is it. Now I will share this. Can share screen. I'll just give an introduction to this form that I sent out.
Paul, I did put it in chat, so if anybody doesn't have that form.
Okay, good. Are you seeing the form? Did I share it properly? Okay, yeah. This is just kind of obvious, but you could astrological constitutional analysis. You could do this looking for yourself for personal alchemy or assessing someone else's chart. But this would be, just a minute. Okay. Just vitality, right? The sun. Review the power, harmony, or discord of the sun, right? You would look at adverse aspects of the sun, right? And we have the idea of the adverse aspects can impair the vitality. Okay, so you review the power, harmony, and discord of the sun, okay? And then here you could just make a note. You kind of review the history of recuperative power and general vitality, you know? Ask somebody, how's your general vitality over your life? can assess yourself. You just have things like, oh, I get colds and flu every winter. I get 3 or 4 colds and flu every winter, right? And that could be an indicator. Some of you may know this. That could be an indicator of low vitality, or an indicator that you had a kid in school. And so it doesn't always mean somebody has low vitality because they get every cold and flu that come through town, because their kid does in the little kind of pod of the preschool or whatever. I'm having gonna have trouble here. The same thing, constitutional magnetism, power of discord. You would look for reviewed general constitutional strength, medical history relating to mental emotional illnesses. Okay, so habitual thinking, Mercury, review the astrology, and then you can put a history of anything related to that. These are the most important. When we finish the basic foundation, I'm going to go back to some of these. What do we mean by constitution? What's the vital constitution? And this will be more clear how to use that. And then here is the physical body. Review the power and harmony and discord of the first house. Review the history of physical illness and injury in the first house. Many times, and we've seen this sometimes, many times you can have the disease constant, but if there isn't some aspect into the first house, it doesn't manifest in the body, right? Sometimes that's one of the things we look for. Okay. Sorry. Okay, illness and hygiene. You look at the 6th house. It's considered the weakest house. And yeah, you look at prominence, harmony, or discord in the 6th house. As far as vitality and energetics, it's the weakest house. So a planet there may be weak by placement there. If the sun were there, you would consider that weak. However, I think of 6th house as the house of labor. It's house of work. So you also think the 6th house is it's the work you do, your hygiene, right? It's the brushing your teeth, right? It's the things you do to take care of your health, right? And so the activities you do to take care of your health. So there can be alchemy there. If the house is weak, you can pay attention to health building exercises. Okay. Okay, and then this would be the obvious next step, is to go through the anatomical zones. You can go through and say, okay, if you're doing it for yourself or somebody else, what's your history of things affecting these areas, right? And you go right through the signs, go through those zones. I find one, I mentioned it at the start, but interviewing is a really complicated. You would think it would be straightforward. Oh, have you ever done? Have you ever done? But people don't remember. They don't forget, or they don't remember during the first half hour of the interview, but then they do remember in the second half hour, right? And we typical with the kind of medicine I practice, we do 2-hour intakes, right? So people in that last half hour, there's a rapport is established, right? And a trust is established, and the person's own unconscious mind is working on self-discovery right by then, and they'll pop out with stuff in the last half hour that they wouldn't ever have in the first hour, so there's a lot of specialized training and interview skills. Some things are counterintuitive. I teach my students that this is somewhere in the good medical interview is somewhere between having making a new friend over coffee, right, and a police interrogation, right? And so you use different methods in order to get the stuff out. So, but anyway, you can go forward. The one thing, there's a trick I learned. I asked people, well, have you ever had surgeries? Have you ever had, what traumas have you had, or whatever like that, as part of the interview? And then later, one of the I learned to ask this: do you have any scars on your body, right? And people who said, no, I never had a surgery, they have an appendix scar somehow, right? So this can be one of the ways you will see discords discords in the chart can manifest as like a scar or an injury in a particular area that person may have forgotten about, right? So there you go. So Taurus, you can go through the signs and the different zones as we have, and then we haven't finished the planets. We actually didn't get through 6 of the planets, did we? So, and then you can do, we call this review of the systems. Then you can just, then after you've gone through the planets, we started doing the signs first. After you've gone through the signs, you can go through the planets, which is a little bit more complicated there. Okay. And so on. And you just go through there and take notes. You can put in the course of this, we showed last week, one of the ways somebody asked, why are we focusing on discords? And in the example chart last week, we came, well, there was these 2 particular aspects, and one of them was the most discordant aspect in the chart. The 3 planets were together in a T-square, and they added 60% of the whole discord in the chart. Okay, that's a pointer for your alchemy, right? Where you see this is one of our methods. We want to pay attention, not necessarily, well, we want to know our most discordant planet, right? But the most discordant configuration, we want to do something about that, right? And our most harmonious configuration, we want to do something to develop that and use that, right? But so here you can find, this is medical. A lot of the medical astrology is about finding the most discordant areas, or finding the discords and then finding a way to address them. So this would be a summary of findings. Planetary discords. Okay. Is there a harmonious aspect to the planet that suggests a therapeutic strategy? Okay. And then you can write down conversion, antidote, etc. Come up with a treatment plan. So we'll do a case using this form. I think we'll do a case using this form later in the course. And I think that's what I have to share tonight. And with that, I'm ready to close. And I'll be ready for questions after we